This is Big Girl Pants Podcast,
where we talk about women, health, power, and wealth.
hosted by
April Melton.
and Kimberly Shapiro.
We are real women with real jobs doing real life.
Join us while we showcase inspirational stories and inspirational people.
Come on, y'all, put your big girl pants on and stay tuned. Okay, so welcome back to Big Girl Pants. I invited both of you guys to come here today, and it's ever so convenient that we had to move the date from like 2 months ago when my dad passed away to now, because the whole thing behind this episode is to talk about your experience in the military, since being in the military, PTSD, what that looks like, all of that stuff. And we don't have to start with that stuff first, but I do want to...
right at the deep end, you know?
I'm just trying to dive right in. But we don't have to start there first, but I do want to hear a little bit more about you guys. And so you can tell the audience like who you are, what you do, what hobbies you like, whatever you want to talk about.
Stories, I don't know.
Well, I want to hear first about, like, you know, introduce yourself. So this is Ian, Ian Odom. He and I actually have a similar background in staffing sales, and we kind of bonded over that. We had really good conversations around sales and around staffing and how terrible it is. But since then, you know, you're no longer in staffing and you're working for a pretty popular company right now. You don't have to say it out loud.
Yeah, I don't know if I can.
And honestly, Duncan is kind of in the same boat just because he's in financial services. So we're not going to say where you guys work.
Yeah, maybe I could get you a sponsorship. I'll send it out to you.
Oh my God, that would be phenomenal.
Sponsor everybody.
Sponsored by.
They sponsor every podcast if you guys are curious what it is.
Seriously?
Seriously, have you ever heard podcasts?
Yes, I've heard. Yeah.
Every single one.
Well, and also another brand of theirs sponsors podcasts.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, they're both now. They do both now.
Right.
Constantly. Every time.
Badass.
There you go.
So Ian Odom.
Yes.
We are friends and we have a similar background in staffing. Duncan, we are also friends, do not have a similar background in staffing. And you are originally from where?
Like, I was born in England and then San Diego when I was 11.
Okay.
And then kind of bounced around all over the place.
Yeah.
So originally, I guess, England,
Originally England.
as the accent would indicate.
I was going to say, when you get drunk, does it come out? Like,
I only have water. We won't be able to find out today.
and Ian, where are you from?
I am from downstate Illinois, and I emphasize downstate because everybody thinks it's Chicago. I am from the cornfields of Illinois. Very
interesting. So my dad's from a really small town in Illinois called Dallas City. It's right next to Burlington, Iowa.
There's so many small little
It's like
towns
this
in
big.
Illinois.
Yeah.
I'm from one of those small towns. I always describe it like if you go on a really long road trip and you find that little town that you have to stop to get gas and get a fast food burger.
And like one red light in the whole town.
Yeah, and you pull out and you never think of it again. I'm from a place like that. So
That's what she said.
yeah.
But let's talk about where you guys were, like, let's say, mentally, before you went into the military. Duncan, we can start with you.
Yeah, I actually had someone ask me that the other day, like, what was I like before the military? I was careless, immature, and pretty happy. Like, as a person, like, I just kind of did my own thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned about the future too much. I didn't really feel like I had any weights on my shoulder. But I also wasn't very disciplined either. So, like, school was not my jam, which is kind of why I joined the military, because I was like, I'm not. Like, I remember, like, graduating from high school and being like, this is amazing. Like, I'm so happy I'm out. And then someone's like, well, what about college? I'm like, another 4 years? That's like another high school. I just got done with that.
Ew.
Yeah, so I didn't do too much. But yeah, I was a pretty, like, upbeat person. I think, like, a little less mature, though, for sure. There's some, I guess I would say there were some, like, negatives and some positives that kind of flipped after my time in the military.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
For sure, I was a lot more carefree than I am now.
And what branch did you decide to go into?
The Army.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ian, how were you before the military?
I was a high school dropout smoking weed every single day.
Hell yeah.
And I was doing absolutely nothing with my life whatsoever. I would probably go get like a job somewhere, earn a paycheck for like 4 weeks, and then go, buy an ounce somewhere and just chill out for another like 6 weeks. And I'm like, man, I'm not going anywhere. I'm
living the dream.
I'm crushing the game here. And I was a little bit later. I joined at 20. I actually turned 21 in boot camp.
Okay.
When I joined, it was 2006.
And you joined
the Navy.
Got it.
I was the Navy. So
where were you stationed initially? So you were in San Diego. So you went to high school and then you enlisted in San Diego?
No, I actually enlisted up in Sacramento, but I didn't join until I was 22. So I had like a 4-year span of figuring that I didn't want to go to college.
Also living your best life.
Right. It took
During
me,
those
it took
4
me a
years,
while.
you could have been going to college.
It took me a while to figure out that I was doing nothing. But yeah, so I joined out of Sacramento, and then I went to basic training in Kentucky, Fort Knox, Kentucky, which is kind of like one of those states you drive through.
Seriously, flyover state for sure.
Yeah. It was. I don't remember much about it other than it was terrible, mostly because I was in basic training. Maybe Kentucky's nice outside of Fort Knox. But then I was stationed in upstate New York, Fort Drum, which is like probably like 30 minutes from the Canadian border.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a
cold.
Yeah, and a culture change, culture shock too. It's freezing up there.
Yeah.
Were the people nice or not nice?
No.
Yeah. I lived in North Dakota. They are not nice.
Well, they're so
real
cold
quick.
all the time. It's like they use all their energy staying warm. They can't smile at you.
Literally.
Yeah.
When it's negative 60, you're like, I can't think about anything except surviving.
Yeah.
What about you, Ian?
I started off in cold weather because there's only one Navy boot camp anymore, and that's in Great Lakes, Illinois.
Okay.
And I was really upset because when I joined the Navy, I never really left Illinois.
Yeah, you're like, I want to get out of here.
Yeah, and they just put me on a bus and took me up to upstate Illinois.
You're like, 3-hour bus ride?
Yeah, in January, and it is right on Lake Michigan, so it's freezing. I mean, you go out, you're head to toe, wool sweater, all the kind of gear you need to stay warm, but you're getting icicles within seconds on your eyelashes.
Yeah,
it's that type of cold. So I spent like 3 months up there because I had to do some training afterwards. For my first job, which I didn't stick with. My first job was an engineman. So I was a mechanic. I had no mechanical background. Then they shipped me off to Sicily, which was awesome. I didn't have to go on a ship. So I was in the Navy and I was never on a ship, never stationed one time. And I went to an EOD unit, which is the people that disarm bombs.
Yeah.
In the Navy, they're a little bit different. They're considered more special forces because they're really good swimmers, right? Because they have to do the mines out at sea and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of boats, and I broke like 3 engines trying to fix it. And they're like, you're not
mechanically inclined, for sure.
They're like, you're not good at this. So they sent me to base security, and I started becoming a military police officer. So that's why I switched jobs after about.
You were an MP?
Yeah. Well, the Navy calls it a master of arms. It's just guard duty,
Got it.
and I did that for 3 years. And then I went to Virginia for a mobile security squadron, I met some really interesting people that are some of my close friends. One was actually just on Jordan Belfort's podcast.
That's badass.
Yeah. I'll see if he wants to come on. He's looking for a podcast. He has a
Bring it on.
big pot business now. Just strange. And that was
also
kind of
beneficial for everybody here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was like a rapid response unit. They went to Haiti, the ships that kept getting, kind of taken over by pirates and stuff like that. They tried to protect those.
Yeah.
But I got deployed to Afghanistan, where I did protective services. So that was very interesting because I was assigned. I've been in rooms with the top brass that you would see on the news. Now I didn't talk to them, interact with them, but I got to see them interact.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Wow.
And you were also deployed.
Yeah, that's right. I was in Iraq for a while. Slightly different experience than Ian had, but So my job was a little bit different in that similar to Ian. Like I didn't do my job when I went overseas necessarily. Okay. So I joined as a 19 Delta, which is a Cav Scout. So our primary job was to be reconnaissance for armor units. We would go ahead of them and then kind of let them know, like, hey, this is clear, this is not clear. I did a few missions like that, but obviously not for armored units in Iraq because we didn't have that at the time. But I did, we did kind of more patrols. Honestly, it felt more like a law enforcement type job over there, just patrolling around. But I did do a couple of like those, what we call OP missions, observation posts, which the idea is you just go out in front of your unit and you kind of post up there. We were looking for like mortar teams and stuff like that were hitting us. So I did a couple of those.
What's a mortar team?
Well, that's a broad question. In a conventional military, it's a unit that has multiple different like sizes of mortars, and it's basically a pipe.
Yeah.
It's a tube
Yeah.
that you drop a bomb into, and when
Okay.
it gets to the bottom of the tube, there's a firing pin that'll shoot it out and lob it.
Got it.
So it just lobs bombs at people.
I've seen that on movies.
They're
Yeah.
annoying.
Yep.
They're annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Along with the I don't know, it's like a prepackaged response that every soldier has when you get hit. Shit, that was close. Like
Yeah.
every time. And you're like, no, it wasn't. Like,
Yeah.
But so we went out kind of like looking for a team of insurgents, but they did things differently. Like we would just line one up. Our unit they would have their mortar pit, and then they would just sight in different areas.
Yeah.
These guys one guy would come and set one up aimed at our camp. And then maybe like hide it like behind like newspaper or something like that. And then a dude like 20 minutes later would just walk along and drop around in it.
Oh shit.
So it was really hard to catch them. So we kind of figured out there's
Yeah.
different stuff that you can use where you can actually, the blast patterns of mortars are really interesting. They, believe it or not, when they lob in, and then when they impact, the explosion
Yeah.
points back towards the tube that they came from.
Oh great.
So if
How
you,
does it do that?
I don't know.
No idea.
No, but if you can have two impacts,
Right.
you can look at the blast pattern and kind of draw two lines back to the
Back to
tube,
where
and where they
it
cross
initiated,
is
yeah.
where the tube's at. Well, the problem is we were so like they were so like sporadic when they came in, and by the time we had figured that out, they were gone. So we had a couple missions where we go out and watch for them and see if we could find them. We took our infantry snipers with us and
Yeah.
hung out.
So, not to backtrack, but I do kind of want to go back to before you joined. Why? Like, I understand why, right? Like, you want discipline, you want structure, you want a future.
Free
you
school.
want- Preschool. Oh, free school.
Yeah,
okay,
preschool.
okay.
Yeah,
I thought you
yeah.
said preschool.
No,
I was
not
like, I don't want to
preschool.
go back
No.
that far. No, I'm
No, I mean, like, yeah.
So you want discipline, you want structure, you want a future, you want something, you want free school, right?
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
some kind of benefit. Is that what you were going for?
No, I joined for probably like the least patriotic reason ever.
You're like, I want to go shoot some shit.
No, I mean, I'd seen Band of Brothers. I wanted to see what it was all about. But also, like, I used to smoke cigarettes back in the day.
Yeah.
And, like, my parents and my brother and my family, like, did not know that I was still smoking.
Okay.
So I figured if I join the Army, they'll put me somewhere far away and I can just smoke my heart, like,
cigarettes,
smoke to
yeah.
my heart's content.
There you
So that
go.
was honestly
Oh
one of
my
the reasons.
God.
And I was like, I don't have anything else
Well,
to do.
and you two, because I've had extensive conversations with both of you, and like both of you guys are very intelligent, but I think all of us have to realize that as a human, our frontal lobe isn't fully developed until we're almost 30. So like making lifelong decisions like going into the military is huge, and you guys did it at such a young and formidable age. Like looking back now, I won't ask this question yet, but going into something like that and making the commitment that you made, did you know any extent of what it was before you went into it?
I don't, unless you grew up in a military family.
How do you know?
You don't.
I know.
You know? I don't. And just like he was saying, Doug was saying, like, I never met one person in the military who's like, I joined to serve my country and defend
Really?
freedom. No.
Interesting.
yeah, the one person that's probably like that is the dude that no one else
Well,
likes.
yeah, you're like, what this guy, man? And they're usually from Texas. I don't know.
Fucking
I'm
narc.
not from Texas, but that's usually that's right.
Doug's like, me neither, so you're not hurting my feelings.
I live here. I can't speak to that.
I'm not. I do live here, but I'm not from here originally. But yeah, you never really meet that overly patriotic person.
That's like the kid who sits in the front of the class.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I guess I don't. I don't know. I don't know why everyone's joining for their own reasons. Most of the time, people are just trying to run away from something.
right.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Either it's poverty or their parents are annoying,
Or no real opportunity or chance
Yeah.
for a future.
In Duncan's case, he just
Wanted to smoke a cigarette and feed.
he wants to smoke a cigarette.
Leave me the parents.
But nobody, it's just an opportunity to do something different, and get away from whatever you're currently at. And you get to meet all these people from different socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yes.
Whether it's me from the middle of a cornfield
Right.
or, Duncan, you're from Texas, right? Or
San
No.
Diego.
San Diego,
Yeah.
from England, San Diego.
Yeah.
And, or you meet, somebody that's from a really, very impoverished minority neighborhood that's just trying to get away.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, like, you're hanging out with each other, and you're like, oh shit, like, I don't know this guy.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
And you're just trying to blend in culturally.
But
and
also,
it's-
like, I mean, you go into this thing like blind. I mean, it's similar to college in that, you're going and you're going to have classes with different people. But the difference is you're living with these men, you are eating with these men, you are surviving with these men, you're going on missions with these men. Like,
and women. I had women in my team when in Afghanistan.
yeah. Did you have women? No.
Not
Army
yet.
guys.
I was prior to when they
integrated or
I
whatever.
brought female soldiers into like combat
so
arms
men
roles.
for you,
Yeah.
and like and I would say from the outside looking in, and I mean, asking you guys these questions is more of like a way to understand kind of what my dad went through too.
Yeah.
Like he was definitely following in his family's footsteps. My grandfather was in the Navy. His brother went in the Navy. And my dad was in the Army, and he was actually a mechanic. He worked on Chinooks. That was his job. And they had a lot. They did something with a lot of like radiation. They were testing for radiation or disarming radiation. Or
Oh, really?
Yeah, something like that.
Then
So
the Army, like they were trying to weaponize radiation. They had to pay off all the families that did it like 10 years ago, where they were like,
Yeah,
get this
and-
soldier with a lead plate and they shoot him with radiation like
Yes.
50 yards and like, well, that killed him. And they
Yes.
just kept doing that.
And my dad's platoon or the group that was sent over there, the ones that were in Germany, they eventually disbanded the group, whatever the word is called, because of so much radiation damage. They were suing the government, so they were like, okay, we can't do this anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. What era was that?
Test dummies or whatever.
80s, 70s?
80. So
80s,
I was
okay.
born in 87. My dad enlisted in 86. And then he was out in like 91.
Yeah, and that's something that people need to understand too. Like my grandfather was Korean War. Then you have Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then we're Iraq and Afghanistan. Those eras in the military culturally, I think, are so different.
So different.
Yeah, we can't compare our experiences to Vietnam
No.
and Vietnam. Like, and when we served too, there was a lot of like the civilian populations for the most part were pretty rallied behind us.
Right.
In Vietnam, they got spit on when they came back.
Literally. I couldn't even imagine.
So, like that was, we'll get into that later on. Well, that was the biggest difficulty for me getting out. Wasn't necessarily people call it trauma or whatever the case may be. That didn't bother me. It was the loss of identity, because when I was in the military, before I was going to be deployed, like I do my commute in my uniform. I go into a 7-Eleven in my commute, uniform, and the respect and identity I had around that was phenomenal. You know who you are. You live a pretty interesting life.
And you have a sense of pride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like now I'm just, some normal civilian. They're like, well,
Right.
go get a job, bro. Figure it out.
Like,
and you're like,
who
what?
am I?
Like,
What
you don't know
do you
who
mean?
I am. I'm a veteran, bro.
Yeah.
Like it's different. I used to serve in a uniform, so that was tough for me, but I'm kind of rambling now. So if you want to jump in there, bud, I don't know.
No, man.
Well, I was going to
I think it's
piggyback,
great.
Yeah, on something you said though.
Yeah.
Like each era is so different, right?
So different.
Like I watch a lot of as you can tell, I joined the Army because I watched Band of Brothers and for the cigarettes, but so I love history. I'm like especially like World War II era is something I'm really
Same.
really interested in.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually Band of Brothers. They do like a little mini interview like before every episode. And one of the guys was saying that there were some guys from his hometown. It was a small town, I think in Indiana.
Yeah.
And he was saying like 4 dudes there took their own lives because they were not eligible to join and fight for their country.
Damn.
So a real different environment. So like I think that kind of probably plays into like the PTSD side of things is, for me at least, coming back from my deployment is like, well, I didn't fight Hitler. I didn't, I didn't storm the beaches of Iwo Jima. I wasn't in the jungles of Vietnam or frozen in
Almost
Korea.
like imposter syndrome-ish, because you're like, these guys did all of
So
these
much more.
impactful things, right? What did I do?
Right.
Right.
And it actually took a Vietnam vet. I still remember his name. His name was Oscar. He retired as sergeant major, but he was infantry in Vietnam, and he's the one that told me, like, dude, you have it. Go get help.
Yeah.
But it took something like that because so many, like I always look to every generation before me
Yeah.
that's in the military, and I'm like, I respect those guys. I respect those guys. I respect those guys. Even like the people that, because I didn't deploy until later, like 2009. So people in 2003 or 2001 that were in Afghanistan, I'm just like, I respect those guys. I think that's just kind of normal. So you always think like the other people did more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that they're all different.
Well, and I
though.
remember
Yeah.
like being in like 8th grade, and the guys who graduated, it was like post the seniors who graduated the year of 9/11, the seniors of 2002. There was like a front page feature on these 3 guys that were graduating from high school and going straight into the Marines or whatever. It was like a huge deal because 9/11 had just happened. So yeah.
Well, and it's a couple things too when you think about it. Like you talk about Korea, you talk about World War II. I don't want to compare those two things because they're a little bit different in terms of like I read a lot of history as well with those things, and it's enjoyable. But they fought conventional wars, like versus conventional armies.
I know. I wanted to get on this too.
right?
Yeah.
So like that's you're taking on an army kind of similar to ours, and then in Vietnam Vietnam fought our army for a little bit, but it all turned into an insurgency,
Right.
which is a different, like Duncan
Again,
was saying, like
different
you feel like you're
environment.
doing like a police action,
Right.
And you kind of are. And I think they talked about it before. I think it was on that movie with Brad Pitt where he played McChrystal. But he was talking about it in one scene of the movie. It wasn't a very good movie, but he was like, here's how an insurgency happens. You go into this combat situation, you killed this one insurgent. Well, that insurgent had cousins and brothers and sisters. Now you have 5 insurgents.
Yeah.
Yes. So what you're doing day to day isn't what they're doing. Like there's an enemy, they wear a uniform,
Exactly.
take them out, you
Right.
win that ground, you
Right.
move on. Ours is like, we don't know what we're doing.
Literally.
We're just kind of walking around here.
And you're like dropped into this country and you're just supposed to just walk around. Like the amount of adrenaline that's probably running through your veins at all times is like you literally have no idea who to trust, where to trust. You're walking around guarded all the time.
Yeah.
Like
I
crazy.
got pretty chill. I didn't mind it. I just walked around and, waved at people, and they threw rocks a lot, which is annoying. Like, why are you throwing rocks at me, bro? Like,
I've got a helmet on, dude.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
Especially the MRAPs, and like if you don't know, like the MRAPs and like people out there listening, like they had the Humvees for a long time, and the Humvees were flat bottomed. And they try to put a V-shaped steel on them at some point.
Not the ones we had. Ours were
Yeah,
just
but
pieces
when
of
they got
junk.
hit with an IED, they were useless.
Oh.
So they built these mine-resistant ambush protection. Is that right? That's what the MRAP stands for?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, sure.
And
Absolutely.
those are basically like the size of dump trucks, like the International. I think International made a couple of them,
Yeah.
actually. And then they have passengers, and below there's this big piece of steel that comes up on it.
Protects, yeah.
Yeah, so when a blast hits, it goes out all over the place. Well, we drove those around. And
So you're feeling pretty fearless when you're driving.
yeah,
that
yeah.
thing.
You take a shot or something like that, and you could hear a ding, ding, ding,
You're
like,
like,
a little
"Nah, we're good."
AK off it or whatever. The worst part about that is in Afghanistan, I was in particularly mostly Kandahar, they have open sewers. So if you're not familiar
Ew.
with how an open sewer works in a third world country, all the houses are kind of built on a tilt,
Sure.
right? And then in the street, there's these big ditches that are dug with pipes from each house. So when they go to the bathroom, it goes down.
So it just smells really bad everywhere?
Yeah, and then and the street's just wide enough for the MRAP, and then the ditch is just big enough for the MRAP's tire. So like that was the most So I drove a lot because we get some new guys like, I want to drive. I'm like, no, because
Definitely
when that
not.
thing gets stuck in that, it's sitting on its axle, and you're trying to tow this. I think they're like 16, 18 tons of steel
Yeah.
out of this ditch that's on its axle. You're like, so. That was the most annoying
Yeah.
part, but that's when you're at danger. Like that's when you would have to be when you're talking about that adrenaline stuff like that.
Yeah.
because
On guard all the time.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
have TVs and stuff,
Right.
so this is entertainment to them. Like,
Right.
so you get a crowd now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Literally.
you got a lot of people.
Well, and like you said, you're in a third world country, so
and some of them want to hurt you,
yes.
and you're sitting here trying to tow a vehicle.
well, I'm sure more than some just want to hurt you. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
well, and so there's so many questions I have. So I want to ask now. This is like half of my big question, right? Like now that you look back on it, and this is not to negate your time served. This is not to negate your service to your country, especially because like this weekend, this is 4th of July weekend, like, and thank both of you for your service. Absolutely. And for, enlisting in something that was bigger than you, right? Because essentially, even if you didn't understand the sense of responsibility that comes with that, like you essentially are fighting for our freedom, right? And I say air quotes because my next question is, how do you feel about the conflicts or places that we are inserting ourselves, right, as a country, into these third world countries? Like, how do you guys feel about the political side of the military and the United States and what we're doing?
yeah. I will say so. It's actually kind of interesting you brought us up because we left Afghanistan officially this week.
Right.
It ended.
Yeah.
20 years.
Right.
We pulled out of
20 years.
20 years.
Right.
And we pulled out of Bagram, which was the last airfield. There was 2 airfields. There's one in Kandahar, there's one in Bagram. I think the Russians built them actually in the 80s. And then they looted the place. Like
Surprise.
So here's what's going to probably happen, in my opinion, we'll be fighting another war over there at some point, and all the weapons that we gave to them while we were there, they'll be using against us. Just like when we were in Afghanistan before, all the weapons they were using us is the ones that we gave them in the 80s.
Right.
I feel like we've seen this movie before.
I feel like this has happened before.
Yeah.
So weird.
And then we'll be in another one, and we'll be in another insurgency situation somewhere in that area. Yes.
So for us, like when I was in Iraq, we were the last combat deployment there. So we actually shut down our bases and handed them over to the Iraqis, so we saw it in person.
And then
it was just kind of the same thing.
Go finish, because I have another question after that.
Yeah, but to my point, though, like as far as like seeing all the work you've done,
right?
And the moment they came in, they tipped over all like the trash buckets that we had and poured the trash out. And I didn't know at the time why they were doing that.
Right.
Oddly enough, like from reading books and stuff like that, like if you see someone, they'll throw a water bottle on the ground. It's not because they don't care. It's because someone else can use that.
Yes.
And they'll pick it up.
Right.
So I didn't know that at the time. I'm like, you're just going to come in and trash the base. Like, this is actually nice. Like they made us clean it before we gave it to you,
and
which was
like,
another point.
Do you have any idea all the things that we could be utilizing in your trash? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but someone asked yesterday on, I don't know if it was Instagram or something like that, but they were kind of asking like to all the people that have served in Afghanistan, like, how do you feel about, you know, us turning over the base? And people had mixed feelings. I always thought that I had no idea what we were doing in either of the places, to be honest, but especially by the time I got there, it's like, why are we still here?
Right.
But at the very least, we were running interference, right? If you put U.S. soldiers or Marines or even Navy on the ground, right, in those combat zones, like you're providing a target for the Taliban or for Al-Qaeda or for whatever insurgency group.
Right.
And if they're occupied fighting Americans on their home turf, then they're not as freed up to come and fight us on our own ground.
Right.
And that was mine. I was like, I really felt like we did that.
That's an interesting perspective.
There's a lot of it too. And like what they don't talk about, like, hey, we're invading this country and stuff like that. Like some of my duty was guarding schools for women in Afghanistan because they were prime targets. So we always had to put guards. And I remember going into these schools and these girls I was there in 2009, 2010, around that time. And these girls would come up to me and they would start talking to me in Farsis. And then they started speaking Latin. And then they started speaking French. And then finally they spoke English to me. And these
were like, oh, it only took 4 different languages.
Yeah, they were laughing at me. They thought I was stupid because I didn't know any of it. And I was. I'm like, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Americans.
But we only been there since, 2003? And they weren't allowed to be educated before that. So these women were given the opportunity, and within 7 years are speaking 4 different languages. You know, they're taking that full advantage of it.
Yeah.
Now, I hope those things hold up, but I don't see them holding up now that we're no longer there. And a lot of that in Afghanistan, that's what they were trying to do. If they were trying to empower women a lot to help bring up the society as a whole. And that was a lot of the mission that we were trying to do. One of our main missions was trying to establish judicial law, like Western judicial law.
Democracy?
Well, no, just law.
Yeah.
You know, like
anything,
courtrooms.
Rules.
And all that. Yeah, we had it was Chelsina or Saraposa. They changed the name of it. And that was our main mission. Because before, when they broke a law, like you go to the elder, like, hey, he stole my goat. And he's like, yeah, I agree, chop off his hand.
Shit.
You know, like that's the, kind of law system they had. So we built like these courthouses with these judges, and then we had prosecution and defense, and they had no idea what they were doing.
No.
You know, like the judge would be like, I think he's guilty. And the like defense would be like, yeah, I agree. Like he's in
You're like, wait. That's not how that works.
He's the elder. He said I'm not going to disagree with him. You know, like, oh my God. And then they tunneled out like a week after I left. We had we built like this hardened post around it so they wouldn't attack it. And then the whole time we were there, they dug out. So like 200 and something of them escaped right after we left because they don't know, So there's aspects of it, like you try to teach them, like you give them education and stuff like that, those tools, which they really enjoy. And in Afghanistan, I think it was like 4% of the population had a cell phone. When we left, it was like 90%.
Okay.
So like there is things that you're helping them with their life, but you can't change those cultures.
True.
And those cultures aren't, and I'm not an expert in this by any means, but in America, we're like more think about nationalism, patriotism, American flag.
Yeah. We're the best.
Yeah, they're not like go Afghanistan.
Right.
Like they have tribes, like they had tribes before they knew what a country was.
Right.
Like
and it's not like we're going to go in there and change that.
Yeah.
But also what are we going to do? Go in there and give them our model because we want an entire world of Americas? Like that?
I don't know. That's all we know. We're not good at building countries in this country. Like we've tried it. We just don't.
Yeah. I would say like for us, as far as like any like I'd say Vietnam forward, like any kind of war, I feel like the United States is almost like a receiver that's like, pass me the ball. And then we get the ball and we're like,
oh shit, what do we do with it now?
Like, every time we've gone into a country, we're like, nailed it. And then we're like, now what do we do? And we just sit there for a while and get shot at.
Yeah, like pretty much.
Yeah, that like, yeah. And then it's like, okay, for what's next?
Well, we won a couple wars. Now everybody expects us to fight the wars.
Well, I mean,
But do they though? Like,
I don't know.
I wonder. I feel like we put our feet into other people's like kiddie
100%.
pool. Like,
we are always
yeah.
like, hey, how can I get in your business
you
and
know,
fuck some shit up?
It's kind of interesting, the whole evolution of it, because like World War II, America was pretty new on the superpower scene. Like before that, like we weren't really considered. You know,
and we waited until we
weren't
as long
really
as possible
we
until
didn't-
we got involved.
The U.S. population didn't want to join
No,
back then. They were not interested. In
isolationism, what they called it back then. It was a big thing. They're like, hey, we got oceans on both sides. We're not worried about Canada and
We're
Mexico.
Gucci.
Like, go do
Thanks.
your thing.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not getting into another European war.
Well, and I guess
know?
with that being said, I feel like it took us how long with the Holocaust? I mean, we knew what was going on and we still didn't get involved.
Yeah.
But then it's like, but even now with everything, how politicized it is, like the same thing's happening in North Korea right now.
Yeah, well,
But we want to put ourselves in, well, I mean, like the murder and how miserable their citizens are and
I just read
they're
a
being
book.
starved and all that.
called On Desperate Grounds by Hampton Sides,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the war in Korea with MacArthur was like 74 and kind of losing his mind,
Yeah.
and like they were like the Chinese aren't going to get involved, and they actually went all the way up there, and then like 200,000 Chinese soldiers attacked these Marines, and
And you're like, oh, surprise.
yeah, and then it's kind of a funny story because you just get back to the 38th parallel, like okay, we're good, we're going home, they're like, and then 2021, we're still talking about it.
Well, but it's also like North Korea couldn't be happening right now without communist China. So that's who we would be fighting essentially, because that's who's allowing North Korea to continue to do what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know enough about that geopolitical, you know.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people say like, oh, you know, we're going to go to war with China someday. Like, why?
I know.
For what? Some fake islands they made out there?
I don't
Or
know.
who can say
I mean, I guess
made the
it's- I
better
guess-
Amazon.com? Oh, we got Alibaba. I was like, is that what we're going to fight over? Like, what are we going to fight over?
I
It
don't
feels like it
know.
would just be a pissing contest. At a
Yeah,
certain point.
there would be no resources or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
we both have our own. Do you know what
True.
I'm saying? Like,
True.
there would be no reason at all.
I think except for North Korea being the exception.
Yeah.
Because the CCP supports North Korea. So the North Korea wouldn't be able to treat their citizens the way they do if
Yeah.
it wasn't for the Chinese Communist Party.
This may sound cold, but why is that our business?
Why was the Holocaust our business?
I think that is going to, like, and I don't
Because
know.
we were in the war already at that point.
But barely.
Yeah. But South Korea negotiates with North Korea.
But also, like
they
we're
built a-
Team America. We're
they-
world police. We
Yeah.
want to police everybody else. We don't want to
tried
police
it.
them too.
We tried it one time. We went to Korea. We did that thing, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you
I don't
know.
disagree. I guess that's just
My
like
grandfather fought over there, and actually the army was like put in a pretty tight spot over there. They were pretty bad. Like they couldn't get them any help, and they had like crawl across like this basically frozen parts of the river to like the ocean to get
Yeah.
back. Like they're like.
I mean,
so-
I'm not saying this is the platform that I'm trying to die. I'm definitely not on a soapbox. I
Yeah.
think that's just my question.
And
Is
also,
like
I think
we
people-
want to be in everybody else's business except for when we are knowingly aware that a country is treating its citizens this way, and we're who we are,
Yeah.
but we don't want to get in that business.
It's just.
I think it's political because of China and our affiliation with China.
Well, South
And-
Korea also negotiates with them. Like they Russian wanted to build a pipeline through
Mm-hmm.
North Korea to supply power to South Korea. And I think they got that done.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I think because they get power
They
from
may
Russia.
have, but even North Korean citizens
You
don't
know.
have electricity 24 hours a day.
Yes, it's yeah. I mean, I would love everybody in the world to enjoy what we enjoy.
Sure.
But I think we've proven in this country that when we use military forces to force that upon them,
Yeah.
it doesn't
It
work.
doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Right.
We didn't work in Vietnam. It didn't work in Iraq and Afghanistan.
True.
And the only way it has any kind of semblance of working is that we never leave. We never leave.
Which is like so, it seems so counterproductive.
Yeah.
Like there's people here that we could be helping. There's communities here that we could be helping. There's money here that we could be investing. But we choose to spend it on that,
I mean, yeah.
on
and then-
other people.
I mean, I just say let capitalism do its thing, because eventually these countries kind of go that way anyway. Because I mean, China did. You know, we call it a communist party, but I knew they had some, but they allowed capitalism.
Yeah.
Russia started allowing capitalism.
And now they
they're
make
like,
really cheap stuff that I buy on Amazon all the time.
Yeah,
what I'm
South
saying?
Korea's got some
our phones,
major companies.
Our phones are made there.
Yeah,
Like,
major companies now. And eventually, I think some ruler is going to take over in North Korea and be like, man, this sucks. Like, even the ruler is going to be like, look at all this stuff they have. Like,
or Kim Jong-un gets assassinated and they're like, oh, I think we should probably reevaluate this whole thing. What's going on?
I've never heard
I don't
anything.
know. No, I think it's not his. It wouldn't be his child. Oh no, he does have a kid. He has a son.
Yeah.
But if let's say he was assassinated sometime soon,
Yeah.
in the next few years or something, his son wouldn't be old enough to take over. So it would be like his sister or something, some other family member.
I don't know.
Whatever. But so the politicization. That would be like my biggest thing is I think that if I had gone over there, but depending on what you guys did too, like you explained like, in full, like what you were over there doing. What were you doing when you were deployed? Like what did your job mostly consist of? Like the policing side of it?
It really felt like we just put ourselves out there. Like, hey, we're here if you want to shoot at us. I'm not kidding. Like,
hey, if you want to have target practice, we're here.
Yeah, we would do like route reconnaissance, which basically you're driving down a route, whatever it is, right? In our AO, we had, I don't even remember a lot of the names, but we would drive between where we were to a place called Fob Hammer, which was like an hour and a half. And that road was so destroyed by IEDs. It was like constant potholes everywhere. Yeah. And that's what you're doing. You're just driving down that road, and then you can call somebody and be like, hey, we just drove down that road. It's safe.
Yeah.
You're like, great.
Like, really?
Successful mission.
Was the fire hot? Hold on, let me put my hand in there and tell you. Like, that's what it feels like. And we would deliver water sometimes. We would meet with, we helped get, a local, a local leader out because he woke up one morning and there was it wasn't going to work, but there was, a grenade with, this was my favorite. It was a grenade, like an old grenade, not one of the stick.
Yeah, this is the Russian stick ones.
With a stopwatch taped to it.
Nice.
And it was just stuck to the bottom of this dude's car. It wouldn't work. Like, it was literally like you take my watch off and tape it to a grenade and stick it to the bottom of the car.
Wow, he looked at his car before he got into it?
Because he was collaborating with the U.S. So
he's 100% paranoid all the time.
I would be.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
On edge.
I probably wasn't him that found it. It was probably one of his security people or something. But I remember we went out there with EOD and we were pulling guard while they're taking this grenade off, and the EOD guy just walks out with it. He's like, well, that's not going to do much. Those guys were interesting.
Yeah. But I had one of those thrown at me by a kid be 15 but 16 years old. It was also a dud. Oh, and he was a horrible throw, and he threw it 10 feet away from us. It wasn't even close, and then it go off, and then he shot at it. And you've seen when they shoot AKs from the hip, so it just you don't worry about
from
it.
the hip or over the head like this.
So it's up in the air, and then he ran off, and I'm like, cool, man. That's lunch. I mean, I'm not. He had to be 14, 15, 16 years. I'm not going to shoot back. I don't want to.
That's what I was going to ask too. Seeing children. I mean, especially you have kids now. Could you imagine if that was your kid, or if your kid was in a situation like that, or what that was like to see those children, and they're bred that way, right? They either hate you or their family is a nice family or whatever. But I mean, I couldn't imagine. You can't even trust a kid over there.
Well, yeah. We had situations, but I would say one of the things that I always remembered is I would never send my son or my daughter in to do something dangerous knowingly, right? I want them to grow up and I want them to be able to handle adversity, but I would never put them in harm's way on purpose.
Right.
Over there, we would have kids, and you said they threw rocks at you a lot. Yeah. They had a type of grenade over there that they used in our AO, which is our area of operation. So that's where we did our missions. They had a type of grenade called an RKG-3, which was a stick grenade, and so it had a wooden handle, and then it had the cylindrical grenade on top, and they would throw it at you, and then a parachute would pop out, and it would float down. And so what the kids would do is the kids would run out and throw rocks at you. They're ranging. Sometimes they weren't just throwing rocks, they didn't like you. They were finding out, okay, this is how far away. And we would see them do it at the edge of our bases too. The kids would run and they would see if they could throw rocks over the edge of your outposts and stuff like that. So then Dad could come out and throw a grenade that far. That's kind of the theory that they had. So I don't know. You just don't think about it. It's a different. It's like culture, a different planet.
Yeah.
You can just, in my mind, I would just think of it as just another place. Like it's not.
Yeah.
I don't associate anything that happened there with something that would happen to my children.
Got it.
Which is really sad because they are kids. Like
They are kids.
From some of my
But
pictures,
they're bred
yeah.
just to.
Well, they just grow up in an environment where death is a lot more common, and they're not as soft as we are. That's for sure.
No, they don't have.
Super
They're not.
Yeah.
You know, there's not fights with their parents and taking their iPad around because Wafer's been watching TV too much. You know, like they don't deal with that. You know, like
I know.
and their culture, a boy that's 15, 16 years old is a man.
Oh, for sure.
That's not. You know.
Yeah.
That's an adult in their world, but. I mean, you're not going out of your way to like hurt them though.
No,
either, you know.
Well,
like,
that's what I'm saying is like you guys aren't going out of your way to hurt them. It's just a different environment because we don't see children as people who can, or we don't see children as like a threat, like someone that could potentially harm you or kill you over here.
Yeah.
You know, we're not.
We
heightened.
don't, but
Right.
I'd say our legal system probably does.
Yeah.
Because they'll try kids as adults here.
That's
they do.
true.
Yeah.
Which
Some
is crazy
some states are like
to me.
11 and 12, which is ridiculous.
Which is also scary. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't, you know, like again, like they weren't, like most of the things you had to worry about in Afghanistan, I can't speak to Iraq, so I never went to Iraq, but like they never engaged in like long periods of firefights with us. Like we had superior firepower. Like
Right.
they knew not to.
Right.
You know, like, hey, I got some Chinese AK from the, 80s. And these guys got 50 cals and a Mark 19, which is like a automatic grenade launcher on these trucks. And I can't hurt them. So let's get into a firefight with them. Like, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
You know, so like
It just doesn't make sense.
when we did get hit, it was kind of like ding, ding, and then they would move away. We had problems with motorcycle AEDs, like the ball bearings. So when we got out of the trucks, that's where we had our issues. We had to be careful for those things because it wasn't a big explosion, but the ball bearings just shrapnel everywhere. And the truth of the matter is,
Then it just goes in your skin and you can never get rid of it. Or if you get hit with it,
it's going to go more in your skin. It's going to take off limbs.
blinded. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like a huge shotgun that goes in every direction, really.
Yeah. You're just gonna. You're if you're close enough, you're not gonna survive, or you're gonna be missing limbs. It's not gonna be like, ow, I got a little, I got a splinter, It's,
Ugh, metal.
but here's the thing too, like the people that set those off weren't the same people that we were in that city protecting because they didn't care about who was around it. Not everybody knew about it. It wasn't like only U.S. Armed forces got hurt by it.
Yeah.
Like it was in the middle of the streets when they let those things off. It was like in their cities. So, there's close to markets or whatever. And those innocent people got hit.
Right. Yeah.
So we're like tending to our wounded and then going to like tend to their wounded.
Right.
Like it's not, it's not precise. So, and I don't even know what their reasoning is for it sometimes. I mean, I don't know, like, hey, if I kill, 2 soldiers, like, I mean, is your point going to get across or something like that? Like you got us, we're going to leave. See ya, I don't. So.
It almost felt more like for street cred.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned that because you were 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
There's a movie that just came out on Netflix called The Outpost.
Oh, I didn't see it.
It's about, I don't know if you've heard of COP Keating,
I'm going to write this down.
Combat Outpost Keating. So one of my buddies that I was deployed with in Iraq was on this outpost.
Okay.
And his unit handed over to the unit that this movie's about.
Oh, really?
It's a good movie. Well, it's pretty sad, but it's
Are you talking about like post in the city? Because like I did most of my time in a major city.
This is in
like a fob.
No, it's a small outpost with like 54 U.S. soldiers on it.
Oh, gotcha.
And it's no longer there because it was up in the mountains.
Okay.
I believe the Hindu Kush area. So they tell you all at the beginning of the movie, but it's interesting because that outpost got attacked and overwhelmed by the Taliban. The same time that you were in Afghanistan. So it shows you how different like your experience was with another place. And that also shows you this is not one country. These are very different groups of people.
Different.
Right.
And that was a very different side of the war too. Like there was I was in Kandahar, which is one side of the war. Like I'm in the cities.
Right.
And then what you were talking about on the Hindu Kush side and Pakistani side, that's a different
Exactly.
There's a different type of war going on
Fighting
over
a different battle over there. Right.
And I read some things about that was just really interesting. They had problems with the Indian military too because they would use it as an excuse to attack Taliban because we were over there. So they would come around or attack Pakistan. So they would come around to Afghanistan and then attack and then pretend they're U.S. soldiers or something.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask too.
We didn't do
because
it.
Because that's what I was gonna ask too. Because my stepdad used to be a cop and he never served in the military, but he used to be a cop and. I believe it was like early 2000s. He was offered a position to go to Kuwait to train their police force. So like, were you guys like helping their citizens to better themselves at any point, or like were you just over there serving like the United States and just manning your post and making sure that things were going okay over there?
I remember seeing their like Afghanistan's army/police guys. But
Right.
They and that Brad Pitt movie, they actually did a good job of it because like when he was playing General McChrystal, it's on the Netflix thing. I forgot the name of it, but he talks to one of these this sergeant. And he's like, "Hey, how are these guys doing?" And
War
stuff like
Machine.
that. Yeah, and then he goes up to that. He's like, "You know what? They don't do shit and they're high all the time." And I was like, "That's accurate." He just nailed it. Because that's what they were. They would smoke like this opium hashish
Yep.
joints and just be out of their mind in
Yeah.
uniform in their trucks. They wouldn't like. They wouldn't do anything.
Ours weren't that
Super.
bad. Like we
They
did.
weren't high on
we
poppy
did
seeds
find-
all day.
Yeah, they were pretty high.
Yeah.
We found like hypodermic needles and stuff like outside of their base. And
yeah.
So we actually worked really closely with what they're called the FPs, Federal Police.
Okay.
They used to be called the IPs, Iraqi Police. They changed their name, and we would work pretty closely with them. But I remember the first dismount mission we went on, very first one I went in country, and the first one you go on, you're right, adrenaline's pumping.
You're nervous. You
You're-
never know
yeah,
what's going to happen.
right.
You're on all cylinders.
But that eventually kind of fades
Of course.
as it becomes normal
Then it
everyday
becomes
life.
day in and day
But
out,
this
yeah.
was my first dismount mission, and we're walking across this kind of like undeveloped area between a few different compounds. Complete danger zone, everything you're not supposed to be doing, in my opinion. But apparently that all goes out the window when you deploy.
Yeah.
And we are partnering with a federal police unit, and this dude is holding his AK by the magazine, right? And they have a curved magazine. He's holding it by the bottom. So he's just walking with it down by his side. The barrel's pointing behind him. It's upside down, and in his other hand, he's eating a sandwich.
Oh my gosh.
Looked like a good sandwich, I'm not gonna lie. But that was my introduction to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at first you despise them because you're like, this is ridiculous. Like you don't want any help. But then you realize, no, this is him walking through like a couple blocks away from where he lives or something like.
Right.
So it was, I think we probably would have done more if we'd have not had people like me. Like I instantly got there and I was like, you guys have no honor. I don't like you. Like I can't speak to you because you don't speak the same language as me, and all you ever want is like my 9mm bullets.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like if they have, for some reason, handguns in Iraq were like
A thing.
that was a prestige moment for you, and that was also I think
Because
what,
they had a lot of assault weapons. They didn't have like handguns.
well, I think Saddam used to use them. It's like so even when we first went over there, they would tell us like if you point your M4 at one of them, like they're just gonna be like, hi, I have one of those
Hey,
too.
yeah.
Like, but if you point like a handgun at them, that was what Saddam used for executions and stuff like that. So there
So
was
that
a
means,
different
like-
connotation.
Got it.
But yeah, so we worked closely. We tried to help. We did a few things over there that were more infrastructure building as well. Delivering water. We went to some local farms to talk to them, where we basically escorted the people that did the talking.
Right.
But we would go to local farms and talk to them about grants so they could grow crops.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We went to a local, this one's crazy. We went to what we call a pickle factory. It literally is what it is. Like,
Okay.
I think that they were
Yeah.
pickling
Gotta have pickles. Yeah.
whatever, cucumbers?
Cabbage, whatever.
No,
Yeah.
to make pickles.
Pickles.
Okay.
But
It's
I-
for sure cucumbers.
But I
don't.
don't. I stayed on.
Cantaloupe.
Yeah,
It's
no.
cantaloupe. That's what it is.
He's like, I don't eat them. Okay, I don't know what they are.
I think they're disgusting. So
I'm
you're
being
all right.
literal.
Whatever. I love them.
When I say
Yeah.
pickle factory, I'm being literal.
Okay.
But we went to that, so I don't know if we did that for anything because that was one of the missions. I was a gunner. I wasn't getting off and walking around, so
Yeah.
I stayed on the truck. So I
Yeah.
don't know what we did in the pickle factory, and I would say what happens in there should stay in
Stay in
there. But so we did do some stuff where we were trying to help from like an infrastructure point of view.
Okay.
But it's so corrupt. So one of the things
Right.
I don't know if Afghanistan had them, but we'd have what we call the Blue Man Crew. So we would hire people to go clean up trash off the side of the road in towns and cities in Iraq.
Oh, wow.
And I think they're either the Blue Man Group or the Red Man Group. Like they had different jumpsuits that we would give them, so we knew those dudes are working for us. And we cleaned that up so that they couldn't hide IEDs in it.
Got it.
The problem is we were paying like $115,000 a month to some local sheikh to disperse these funds out
Yeah.
to these groups so they
Wow.
get paid for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like we didn't have a clue what the minimum wage was over there,
Right.
or what, but very little of that ever got down to the people doing the job.
Exactly.
Oh, for
They
sure.
were happy. They made the money they wanted to make.
Yeah.
But then homeboys got, millions of US dollars
Right.
just
For
in
cleaning up the
cash.
streets.
Yeah.
And he's not disseminating. He's hoarding it.
Right.
And we had the same
getting
thing.
paid.
Yeah,
Right.
and we had the same thing with the federal police guy. Like we found out like he was getting like $95,000 a month or something to pay the other policemen with, paying them a fraction and keeping
Right.
the rest of it.
Yeah.
And that's our money. Like that's taxpayer money, and we're over here making less than that.
Right.
Oh yeah.
For what? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
That
if you
was-
think
yeah.
about like the way, like they did hand out like a lot of stupid cash for
Well,
stupid
and
things.
I think
you know, like
the cost of war, whether we are in a current conflict or currently at a state of war, the cost of it is so astronomical.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, we're paying
expensive.
so much money.
it's really expensive.
It is, but it also pushes the economy. I mean, I'm not advocating as that as a
No,
method.
I mean,
but
educate me
there-
because I don't know that
well,
much about it.
So, for
but-
an example, if you are in like World War II is a pretty good example. It pulled us out of a depression
yes.
because we needed more manufacturing. So it can
Right.
drive an economy,
Well, and
but
World
it's
War II
expensive.
World War II did so many good things, not only just for the economy, but for women too. I mean, we were able to go to work and prove that we were able to work, and we boosted the economy
Yeah.
during that war too.
Yeah, well, and actually, because FDR had the first women cabinet member.
I
on
didn't know
state.
that.
She was in charge of Social Security, and she's the one that came up with most of the things around Social Security. So most of the things that we have today, based off that, was based
Look
off
at
a
you.
woman. Yeah.
Historian Ian.
Yeah, she
no
was-
big deal.
she was
I
a
think
woman
it's
from-
just historian.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Dad joke.
But that's where a
that
lot of
was
that came from.
so obvious.
Was it?
And I
Yeah,
did not even get it.
yeah. But yeah, but there's also like what he's saying is correct, but I don't think our wars did that. I think our wars brought us into a lot of the debt that the U.S. has right now. I think they did a lot of handing out a lot of contracts,
regardless of
printing off a lot of money, and then they handed
for
it off
sure.
to.
And I think struggling as in the areas that we are still struggling in, there could have been a better allocation of funds. That maybe
Yeah.
we didn't spend that much money on wars and we spend it elsewhere. I mean, Flint, Michigan, like
Yeah, I'm really
we
okay
can't-
not getting involved in third world countries crap anymore. You know,
Right.
I'm cool
Agreed.
with it. Yeah, like
I'm down. Let's do that.
do their thing. Yeah,
How do we do that?
like do their thing.
Yeah.
Because we're not stopping anything. And
Right,
now
and
we
that's-
fight these proxy wars,
Yeah.
which are the dumbest things. Where's the one at now? Is it like Jordan that we've been fighting forever?
Syria?
No.
Syria?
Well, there's been one in Jordan for a long time, right? Because we started backing the Saudis, and then Russia started backing one side of it. They blow the crap out of each other.
I thought
down there.
that was Syria because it was
Maybe it was Syria?
Al-Assad or whatever.
Yeah.
No, that's Assad, not Al-Assad. Al-Assad's a base in Iraq.
Yeah.
Assad was the guy that I think
He's
Russia was
gone
backing.
now, though, right? Assad's gone. I don't know.
It's not history. It's not history yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
not enough for
historian.
me to study.
Yeah. Yeah, how many proxy wars that we fight that we do the same thing, that we
Right.
just back aside.
Well, and I
then-
think along the lines of like what you said about the other governments being corrupt, like the way that we fight too is we have to kind of assimilate to get in there in the first place. So we have to make deals that are less than favorable, like
Yeah.
giving other countries guns, giving them equipment that they could potentially use against us. Like, how does that even make sense? But it's like, well, we have to get in there somehow, or we have to make nice somehow, or we have
Yeah.
to do this somehow, make this deal, this shady deal. But
we gotta stop giving other countries guns that hate us later on. I mean, like
Don't
we do it all the
understand
here's some. I
it.
mean, everything that we were attacked with in Afghanistan is probably what gave them in the 80s. Like they would shoot rockets at our base every night, and they weren't big, and they rarely got somebody. They would get somebody from time to time, but mostly what they would do is wake you up.
you're like, this is just an annoyance
so
at this
2
point.
to 4 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning, there's like this.
Well, and
the
sleep
bomb.
deprivation is like,
Oh
know,
no, you get used to it. I slipped right through it. I was like, I'm not going to the bunker. You hit me. I don't give a crap. Like I've been here like 9 months now. Like I don't care.
I'm over it. I don't
Yeah, I
care.
don't care. I'm sleeping. Like I'm tired.
Well, thank you both for your service.
Cool.
And happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on
Oh
my
yeah, we
podcast.
have fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. And for those of you who are listening, please like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review. 5 stars only, please. Thank you. If you want to find us, we are on every podcast platform, Spotify, iTunes, and on YouTube for video. So, yeah, thank you guys for listening. Bye.